You're listening to Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars begins now.
All right, well, hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vansel, and as you can see, there are two things that you're going to notice tonight. The first is that Daryl's not here. Unfortunately, Daryl could not make it tonight. He couldn't do it, and that, of course, brings me into the second thing, which, of course, is that we're going to take a little bit of a break from our Ninth Jedi review, which is a new Vision series that premiered last week. And we're going to take a little bit of a detour because Star Wars was heavily represented at D23 this year. And Daryl and I were talking about it. When he told me he couldn't make it, he was like, you know what? There's a lot of things that happen. You should probably just do the show because if we tried to do it at a later point, it'll lose a little bit of momentum. And we could just pick up with the review of The Ninth Jedi next week. And so I was like, yeah, that's cool. But we got Grandmaster with us. We got Dragonfly with us. We got Ted Adam Green with us. So I'm in good hands with the chats, fortunately. So I'm very happy about that. And speaking of which, they are chatting feverishly now. And of course, Grandmaster starts us off before I even really get into any of this news. Grandmaster basically comes at us and says, I just finished a meeting. Executives have made a decision about Maul Season 2. They have approved it. It will release tentatively after Starfighter can change if Starfighter does badly. And of course, that's really what we're going to be talking about, or at least that's going to be one of the focuses. There's pretty much two that's going to hit, right? One, Ahsoka Season 2. We got a trailer. I'm actually going to show the trailer. I'm going to react to it. I didn't really put that in the description or anything like that, but I have it. So we're all going to watch that together, and we're going to react to it. And then we'll talk about a lot of the things that have been announced in regards to Ahsoka Season 2. And then, of course, we'll turn our attention to Starfighter. Yes, there's a Mandalorian and Grogu Lego movie. There's some other things that came out pretty much during D23. But I think the main takeaways here, and of course, Grandmaster can correct me if I'm wrong. There is, by the way, a lot in the Discord. A lot. I can't even stress how much Grandmaster has dropped in the Discord. If you guys want a little bit more in-depth stuff, like some photos, some videos, some other news, maybe some things we don't cover here, obviously we're going to continue this discussion in the Discord, but there's already a gang of stuff in there. Let's see. Everybody's just basically greeting, spam from Twitch, which is always nice. Always good that our Twitch viewers are good for at least that. So basically, like I said, the main thing here that we're talking about, Ahsoka Season 2, teaser trailer was dropped. The release date is now January 20th, 2027. Remember, one of the things that we had discussed earlier was, okay, we know it's coming out in 27, but when? There was speculation. Now we actually have that release date. Dave Filoni, Grandmaster calls him Phony Baloney, appeared at D23. Rosario Dawson was there. Hayden Christensen was there. There's some news there too. Iman Esfandi appeared because he's Ezra Bridger. Season 2, of course, is going to continue the major story threads from Season 1. The key characters that are expected in this conversation tonight, I imagine, are going to be Ahsoka, Anakin, Ezra, Sabine, Hera, Grand Admiral Thrawn, who, by the way, got a new look. We're going to see that in the trailer. I think he looks a lot more threatening. I think he looks a lot more sinister. When you see the dialogue, you're going to see that it's very much what we would expect from Thrawn. Now they've actually taken the Thrawn character and made him a lot more closer to what we saw in the books, and then, of course, what was in Rebels. And so, again, we'll talk about this after I roll the trailer, because I do think that it's important that not only do we break down the trailer, but we actually talk about some of the things around Ahsoka Season 2. This is really a pivotal project. if you think about it, actually, both Starfighter and Ahsoka are each taking two different mediums. And by the way, I don't know if this is going to happen. This is like a little side note that I just remembered. Daryl did say that he may be able to chat tonight. So it is possible that we'll see him. And if he does appear in the chats, obviously we're going to bring him on and see what he has to say. So it's not confirmed. You know, he said he might be able to do it, he might not. But we'll look out for Daryl and see if he ends up chatting. But essentially what you have is you have two different mediums, right? You have Ahsoka on the Disney Plus or television side, and you have Starfighter on the theatrical or film side. And so each one of those projects that's going to be released is really going to tell us where Star Wars is going to go in the foreseeable future. We've talked about the Ninth Jedi series that we're in the middle of reviewing. We just finished episode 1 last week. We'll pick up with episode 2 next week. There's 8 episodes of that. The interesting thing about that is that it gives us a little bit of a different take, and it's going to be an interesting experiment to see, will people accept or be intrigued by things that take place outside of the Skywalker saga? We'll see. Okay, so that's that. But it's very important to note, though, that with these two projects that were revealed, I mean, it's not, I can't really say they were revealed, right? Iron Boy Wonder greets us tonight. Good evening. Good evening. Basically, you have somewhat of a test that's going to occur in the Star Wars universe moving forward. And that is, will Ahsoka Season 2 live up to its expectations? Will Starfighter live up to its? We know with the Ninth Jedi, okay, fine, people might end up, you know, accepting things that happen outside the Skywalker saga, but both, and Starfighter technically does too, because it does take place after episode 9. And again, after we deal with Ahsoka, and that's how it's basically going to break down tonight. Again, I really only found out yesterday that Daryl wasn't able to do this, so I had to scramble a little bit, try to compile some information. As you guys know, that this is a discussion-based show, so when you're doing it solo, not much to discuss. But you guys are here in the chat, so that's good. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to roll this trailer, and we're going to basically see what the trailer was all about. We're going to comment on aspects of it, and then I got some things that we can discuss in regards to not just the trailer itself, but just this project overall. So let's check it out.
Tell me, Ahsoka. What troubles you?
Good to see Anakin.
I'm always walking by your side.
Citizens of the glorious empire, I have returned.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
I
about.
took
That's
an
the one
oath
we
to
expect to see.
protect the empire. I therefore declare war on the Rebel Alliance.
It's interesting that he doesn't talk about the New Republic. He talks about the Rebel Alliance.
I had a vision.
What did you see?
More and more danger than I thought.
Balin claimed to have knowledge of a power.
Master!
One that could end wars.
See the crew of the Ghosts, that's good.
A long time ago, I walked away from the Jedi.
A lot more action this time.
Ahsoka. Take your time to decide. Are you a Jedi? Or not?
Yeah, so again, this actually gets me really pumped up and really excited to see this. There are a lot of things in there that we can break down, obviously. You know, you guys can tell me what your favorite parts were. I like seeing a lot of the Anakin guidance stuff. I really am happy to see Hayden Christensen finally being embraced back into the Star Wars universe once again. Because again, the prequels weren't the most well received things in the world, and so it's nice to actually see him. Um, it's also nice to see the character of Anakin actually having an expanded role because he was actually one of my favorite parts anyway of season 1. So that part is cool. Grandmaster says when Hayden was interviewed on D23 Red Carpet, he confirmed that Natalie is not in Ahsoka season 2. So just so you guys have a little bit of a little background on this. It was rumored for a long time that Natalie Portman was going to return to the Star Wars universe and be in Ahsoka season 2. And for a long time, the rumor actually wasn't that she was even going to be Padme. She was going to play some other unrelated character. Well, obviously that's not happening. I always thought that was a little bit of a sketchy at best thing anyway. But hey, who knows, right? I mean, anything is possible here. I think that while there were a lot of things that were revealed at D23, I also think that they wisely kept a lot of things close to the vest. And I don't usually say that because at this point, I'm like, look, let's just reveal some stuff. And we don't have to be so secretive anymore. But it also is nice that certain things aren't spoiled. There's certain Easter eggs that are, like I said, kept close to the vest. And so that way, as an audience member, we can still be surprised. Dragonfly Mass says, I'm betting the crazy lightsaber guy might have a tie to Exar Kun. I kind of thought that myself. Exar Kun was known for his size reshaping lightsaber. That guy also has similar eyeshadow and face feature to Exar Kun art. Yeah, and I'll tell you something. Exar Kun has long been one of my favorite characters in the Star Wars universe. I've always loved Exar Kun. In fact, true story, my PlayStation handle is Darkoon, and basically that came from this whole little thing that I was going to pitch years ago because I had met some people. I mean, obviously, I work in the industry. I work more on the corporate side, but I do brush with some Hollywood people every once in a while. And I had this whole idea of Exar Kun having a kid named Darkoon, who pretty much, it was almost like he was a gray Jedi / Sith or Force user or whatever before that term even existed or that concept was even there. And the idea was that he was a little bit more like in between or whatever. I won't bore you with all of the details of it, but I kept that name because I thought it was cool and I made it my PlayStation. So I say that all that to say that I love Exar Kun. And I always thought he was a cool character, and I always thought they should bring him in. Now, let's be real. Is this Exar Kun? I almost would be willing to bet my entire life that no, it's not. Watch, it is. Be executed in front of you all, but I don't actually think that that's who it is, or even that it's related, but it is a nice nod to it. Let's see. Iron Boy Wonder says, oh, did you notice Adam Driver portrayed X-Men villain upcoming reboot? Yes, I did notice that, and I did think that that was interesting. And I'm glad to see him taking on another role like that. I know he wanted to do the hunt for Ben Solo, which, by the way, they addressed that too. Somebody asked Filoni about it, and he was just like, the Force is not with us on that one. And that sort of reminded me of Ted Adam Green. Whenever he's wondering if we're going to do it, he'll chat in sometimes, is the Force with us tonight? So that totally reminded me of that. So I had to bring that up. But yeah, it's good to see Adam Driver doing it. I would like to see Adam Driver returning to a Star Wars project at some point. The Hunt for Ben Solo, really, I thought was a cool project. I thought it's something they should have moved forward with. Get it, though. They're probably trying to distance themselves. Any sequel things, Grandmaster can confirm this if he wishes, but it's looking like the Rey movie is moving more and more close to not happening from everything that we've seen. I don't know. New chatter. Senator Padme Amidala is like, hey, dude, hey. It's always good to see new people chatting in. Feel free to comment on anything we're talking about, obviously. But it's good that you're watching. And then Grandmaster says, it is not Exar Kun. Like we thought, right? They want you to think it is, though. Similar to wanting all fans to think that Devin Azara is Talon, but she's not. Yeah, that was another thing that we had talked about, too, while we were all. They purposely do this to get your attention, and it worked. Yeah, it worked. I mean, I would love for that to happen. You said this is called bait and switch. Yeah, I'll tell you what the ultimate bait and switch was. When they reshot 90% of, or 80% or whatever of Rogue One. And so, consequently, we ended up getting all this cool stuff in the original trailer that, of course, didn't end up making it into the movie. And, we were just kind of like, yeah, I wonder what happened to that person. Hey, that really cool scene, where the TIE fighter, came up or whatever. I mean, there was just so many cool things. Iron Boy Wonder says, always wanted Han Solo to appear in Revenge of the Sith, raised by Chewbacca, Wookiee front Lando, Han Solo helping Yoda. There was rumors that Han Solo was going to appear in Revenge of the Sith. Of course, he would have been a kid. But they wisely, I think, chose not to do it. I'm glad they didn't do it, because it would be another case of let's just shoehorn a ton of characters in and just for the sake of fan service. And I'm never a fan of people doing things like that for the sake of fan service. Let's see. Yes, Adam Driver will be Mr. Sinister. Then Iron Boy Wonder says something that's a little confusing. See news making Marvel crossover with Star Wars? I don't know. Now, there was something interesting years ago in a novel where there was a Star Trek The Next Generation novel that did a crossover with X-Men. Of course, at the time, Patrick Stewart was doing the X-Men movie, so I always imagined Picard meeting Xavier and it being a little... Grandmaster says, phony baloney confirmed at D23 that the 100% soul isn't. Yeah, I basically brought that up because I thought it was interesting. But here's some things that we need to also look at and talk about as well when we're dealing with some of this stuff related to Ahsoka. Again, we'll get to Starfighter. But this is probably, speaking of Dave Filoni, this is probably his most important live-action Star Wars project yet. Because, again, we were all cranked up Season 1, and Season 1 had some issues. It wasn't as good as what it could have been. There were a lot of bad decisions, and I fully say that that's because Dave Filoni, while he's really good with animation, he's really good with storytelling, and he's good in that realm, he still needs a lot of practice in live action. It's not yet there as a live action director. Now, I'm hoping that he did exactly what he did last time, where he turned over certain episodes to other directors, whatever. But with Ahsoka, I'm pretty sure he just did it all himself. Like with The Mandalorian, they had multiple directors, and Filoni did a couple. And that was good practice for him, but I think it was a little bit too early for him to take the reins. I think he should have done what George Lucas did in the original trilogy, where it's like, okay, he comes up with the story, he approves or disapproves, the direction, and he kind of steers the ship, so to speak, but he produces, but that he turns it over to an actual experienced director. So we'll have to see. Let's see what we got here. We got more chats. You guys are doing a really good job helping me out, solo host here with the chats. Grandmaster says, as I shared in the Discord, Simon Kinberg is no longer working on the trilogy and left a month after death. Well, yeah, that's too bad, really, because I was really looking forward to, in a way, to see it. I mean, granted, it's like I wasn't 100% board, but hey, it's all good. Dragonfly basically says stoked to see Ezra and Thrawn clash again. I think that's going to be really cool. I think there's going to be a lot, and I do think that you need to see Thrawn feeling more like a major threat. I think that that's something that is vital in this, is that he feels a little bit more. And again, I'm very encouraged by the trailer that this could be the case. It seems like it could be the case. Thrawn definitely seems a lot more menacing, and I think that this could actually be what we wanted to see in season 1, and now we're going to see it in season 2. I like the direction they're going in. I liked a lot of the scenes that we saw. I think there's a lot of really good stuff that came out of this. We'll have to see. Again, let's see this next chat here. Grandmaster says in the trailer you see Ezra in a lightsaber battle with Embo. Yeah, that is pretty good, and I definitely think that Ezra's return has to pay off, along with Sabine's Jedi path. I think you have to see that this time. I was a little bit disappointed by Ezra in season 1, and especially like when he and Sabine were talking, and and during the review we basically said, look, it looks like they're reading off the teleprompters. But I definitely think that you need to see something in regards to that. We need to see a little bit more of that. We need to see him coming into his own again. Just like Anakin's continued presence. That needs to answer some questions about the Force and memory and legacy, and it's kind of like, okay, he's appearing to Ahsoka the whole time. I'm sure Luke and Leia are probably like, hello, we're like your kids. We could use a little bit of your guidance too, right? But, I understand it, and then as a fan, you have to come up with the in-universe explanations as to why. Maybe they will, but if they don't, we as fans are really good at doing that. We can come up with a lot of different explanations about why things are. Grandmaster goes on to say, in the trailer you also see Shin Hati in a lightsaber battle with Yuang. Yeah, I am really excited about that. I'm really excited, honestly. Look, I'll be completely 100% honest. Shin Hati was one of my favorite characters actually in Ahsoka. And I'm very curious. So was Baylan, really. I thought that Baylan and Shin, I really wish they had been used more, to be honest. But you could make the argument that they were showing a little bit of restraint, and perhaps that's why they were so effective, is because they weren't overused. But I'm really curious. Obviously, Ray Stevenson's dead, and Rory McCann is taking over the role. But I'm very curious to see what happens with those two characters in particular, because they started messing around with the whole father, son, daughter thing, and there were some things that were beginning in the first season that I definitely think they need to start enlightening us about where that's going in season 2. Conceivably, if they do a season 3, I guess maybe they can make it pay off there, but I definitely think that. Iron Boy Wonder, let me see. Tackle this one. Next year is a 10th anniversary. Lame Jedi is 0 anniversary. Yeah, not sure what the point is on that one. But yes, next year would be the 10th anniversary of what? Rise of Skywalker? No. Force Awakens. Yeah, not really sure. All right, Dragonfly. I think Ezra is also in an A-Wing. My personal favorite, Star Wars Starfighter. You like the A-Wing? I don't know. I think the A-Wings are cool. But the thing is that some of those other ones, like the B wing was okay. The A wing is cool. The Y wing I thought was fun, but I don't. And then it looks like Daryl is chatting in. At least it better be him, because if it's not, it's somebody hacking into the system. He says the return of the double-bladed lightsaber. Yes, yes, the return of the double-bladed lightsaber. Oh, Iron Boy Wonder was talking about, I mean, no anniversary love. Okay. Yeah, well, you know what? They can't celebrate the anniversary of every single project that because, look, it's understandable, right? Like, you do have certain anniversaries. In The Last Jedi, basically, I mean, nobody really liked it that much. I mean, there's a couple people, don't get me wrong. And I thought for what it was, but it did have some issues, right? So I think that that's something that you have to take into consideration. But back into this, the other thing is the prettiest storyline needs to feel more meaningful, not just mysterious. Um, and I think that one of the main jobs that Ahsoka season 2 is going to have, besides righting the wrongs from Ahsoka season 1, is it has to restore confidence in the Mandoverse. Because if you think about it now, Mandalorian season 3, and the Mandalorian being the mothership show, was once untouchable. Season 1 and 2 were incredible. Season 3 sort of dropped the ball. The Book of Boba Fett wasn't very well received for good reason. There were some issues there. So this show has to it has to restore the confidence, because the Mandalorian and Grogu movie didn't do as well as they had hoped. And I think that honestly, the Mandoverse is going to ride on this. Daryl says, with all flashbacks, I hope they really make season 2 more about Ahsoka. Yeah, I know. I'm right there with you, man. I mean, it was one of those things where in season 1, I thought the show should have been called Sabine. You know? And even though I agree totally with what you're saying, judging by the trailer, I don't think it's going to be. I honestly think that once again, Ahsoka is going to be a supporting player in her own show. You know, my whole thing is like, okay, I get it. You called it Ahsoka in order to perhaps make her the anchor character in all of this, because you could make that argument, but I could also make the argument that this is centered around, like, Thrawn, for instance. You know? I mean, because if you think about it, it's his presence that you feel leading up until we actually see him at the end, and now it seems like it's going to be all about him. So I don't know. I don't think that that's going to be a thing. Grandmaster, let me get this in here. Oh, yeah. Hi, Daryl. Unfortunately, it will not be more about Ahsoka. Yeah, see? And then Iron Boy says, Mandalorian season 3. I remember that season lame Boba Fett like Power Rangers. Oh yeah, the bikers in that were just, it was terrible. There were just so many things wrong, honestly. And look, the trailer for this looks good. I will say that I was excited for Ahsoka season 1 because the trailer looked cool. But it didn't look as cool as this one does. This one gives me a lot more hope that something good. Grandmaster says, I can share that Ahsoka season 2 will be Thrawn centered. Okay, that's basically what I said. It's kind of like, you know, it's definitely going to be Thrawn centered. Dom, of course, because we're not talking about the Ninth Jedi, decided to come in and chat and troll. Let's see what he has to say. Forget Ahsoka, just make Anakin the main character. Hope this show lets down all the fans so Disney can hopefully get back to the characters that actually. Well, I will say this. I do think that they should probably pump up Anakin's presence more, considering they brought him in. And as I said earlier, I think that they need to explain why he appears to Ahsoka, but again, I don't know. Just because they haven't shown it doesn't mean he hasn't done it, but it doesn't appear that he's appeared to Luke and Leia at all. they're very much in need of his guidance during this time period. So we'll have to see. Grandmaster says there will be flashbacks in every episode for Clone Wars and Rebels. Dragonfly says, I think they use the name Ahsoka for better brand recognition. Yeah, that's undoubtedly. Daryl says, hey, Grandmaster, yeah, I had a bad feeling about that. Dom, of course, says, casual fans have no idea who Ahsoka is. That's probably true. He says that's why she isn't important. And then Iron Boy finally says that Alden Ehrenreich not seen lots of flicks on the MCU. Yeah, but, and again, look, you can make the whole argument that maybe they should have given Solo another chance. Maybe they should have done a lot of other things. We'll just have to see what they're gonna do. I'm hoping Ahsoka is cool. Like I said, it's got to rebuild the confidence in the Mandoverse. And if it underdelivers, then the Mandoverse is in trouble. And honestly, it's not even just the Mandoverse. You guys remember that was the anchor series for Disney Plus shows. Now, obviously, has expanded beyond, but it still is pretty much as far as Star Wars goes on Disney Plus. There is room for some concern. Now, of course, some other things that we actually saw at D23 with the Ahsoka Tano costume. You know, there's a bunch of props and costumes. Again, Grandmaster posted a lot of this on our Discord. I mean, a lot. I can't even begin to tell you guys how much stuff he posted on our Discord, all from D23. So if you guys really want to see a comprehensive look, photos and videos of what happened at D23, just check out our Discord. But we got, among other things, Ahsoka's costume. We got Anakin Skywalker Padawan look. We got Sabine Wren's Padawan look. We got the Loth Cat. We got Chopper. We got new Grand Admiral Thrawn uniform. And then, of course, the look connected to the Great Mother. So these are a lot of the things that we saw for Ahsoka. So that's pretty much it for Ahsoka. We can also talk about it more if you guys want. But of course, we have to move on to Starfighter. So Starfighter, we actually have, finally, Ryan Gosling's character was revealed as Kade Auberon. Now, the interesting thing is, of course, you guys know how the internet is, right? Instantly. And we talked about this a few months ago, by the way, because Grandmaster sort of told us some of this stuff earlier. We talked about this on the Discord because a lot of people, thought then and are thinking now that this is a reference to Kade Skywalker, which, of course, is an expanded universe. So we'll have to see, right? We'll have to see. I mean, is this a case where maybe they just did a thing like Kira, for instance, right? They basically took the Kira name from George Lucas's treatment for the sequel trilogy, changed the spelling a little bit, and created a character off. There's obviously no relation to it, but at the same time, I mean, who knows? It's kind of like Grandmaster said, right? I mean, people, they love to throw people off the track. There's a lot of things that came out at D23. There's a lot of things that I think that when we look at it and we dissect it a little bit, we can read between the lines on some of it. But for the most part, I don't necessarily think that they're pulling the wool over anybody. Shawn Levy appeared at D23 with Ryan Gosling. The official Starfighter logo was revealed, so we could start using that. And again, just like January 20th, 2027 was a release date for Ahsoka on Disney Plus, we got the official release date for Starfighter, which will be in theaters on May 28th of 2027. So really, within a 4-month period, we're going to see Ahsoka Season 2, and we're going to have the Starfighter. And as I mentioned before, this is definitely going to be a vital thing, because you have one theatrical project and you have one Disney Plus project. Both of those are going to go a long way in determining the future of Star Wars, or at least the viability of it. I mean, look, bottom line, they have enough money. They could make Star Wars projects, even if they're not profitable. But I do suspect that maybe they actually care about some of this stuff, right? We know that it's directed by Shawn Levy. It was written by Jonathan Tropper, produced by Shawn Levy and Kathleen Kennedy. So again, this is another Kathleen Kennedy thing. And look, she was pictured at D23 too. It's like Grandmaster said, she hasn't gone anywhere. It's not like she's completely out of the picture. I suspect that that could happen at a later time once all of her projects have been exhausted. But as long as they're producing her projects, I don't know. I think that it's just going to be a continual presence. Let's put it that way. Even if she doesn't have a whole lot of directing. Dom says, why pick an already famous actor for a Star Wars movie? Get more people to watch a terrible movie just for their favorite actor. He says Starfighter is about the plot. Maybe. I mean, at this point, I don't know if anybody... I mean, the bankability of Star Wars just isn't as certain as it just isn't. I mean, let's face it. Did they get him for that reason? Not necessarily. Look, the bottom line is Star Wars is beloved by billions of people. There's a lot of actors. That's why Tom Cruise was involved. People just love Star Wars. Leonardo DiCaprio was just totally vying for playing Anakin Skywalker back during the prequel days. You still have actors that just are clamoring to get into Star Wars because they just love it so much. Everybody does. Now, granted, it hasn't been as successful as it used to be, and future generations don't love it as much as the previous generations. And so that's something that we can discuss, obviously. And again, the other thing that you have to look at with Starfighter 2 that I think is going to be a telling thing, much like how Visions the Ninth Jedi is, this is taking place a little bit outside of the Skywalker side. Okay, like Ninth Jedi is a good thing of, can we introduce something new to the fans in Star Wars, have it still feel like Star Wars, but have it be completely new, and maybe a little bit different than what they're used to, and have them accept it. That's the experiment there. The experiment here is, can you release something that is a true standalone movie like this is? It's taking place after Episode 9. Has nothing to do with the Jedi, at least that I gather. Will it be accepted by fans? I actually think it has a better chance of being accepted by fans because storyline is a little bit less... It's a little bit less lore-based. And it's a little bit of a wider appeal, I think. So again, Ryan Gosling plays Kade Auberon. He's described as coming from the wrong side of the galaxy. His fate is tied to the fastest starfighter ever built. And it involves a cynical rogue facing his mysterious path. So again, these are themes that are a little bit more wide in their appeal than your typical Star Wars project. The adventure is expected to include hope, family, humor, danger, spectacle, and a big theatrical Star Wars. Ryan Gosling plays Kade Auberon, as I mentioned. Flynn Gray is in this. Matt Smith is in this. Mia Goth is in this. Aaron Pierre, Simon Bird, Mel Westman, Daniel Ings, and Amy Adams. Because everybody forgets about Amy Adams. So again, this is a really, really big test for Lucasfilm. Because this is going to be the first theatrical Star Wars movie in a while. And yes, as Don pointed out, Ryan Gosling does give this movie a major, Hollywood lead, so that helps. The standalone story, I think, could probably help a little bit with some of the timeline baggage, because that's another problem, is that whenever you do something that's within the Star Wars Skywalker saga, you have to start thinking of continuity, and you aren't as free. Like, for instance, when they're bringing Anakin into Ahsoka, the first question any hardcore fan's going to ask is, well, wait a sec. Well, what about Luke and Leia? Why isn't he appearing to them? Maybe he is. We don't know. And, look, the movie Starfighter not being centered on legacy characters. I mean, I think it's an exciting thing. But, I mean, if we're being honest, it's risky. It really is. All right, let me get to some of these chats. Iron Boy Wonder says, only thing excellent Starfighter would score Thomas Newman or Claudio. Oh, yeah, 'cause behind Top Gun Maverick. Dragonfly Mask says, I sure hope they are on Glee Anselm and we get some more live action. And then, of course, he also asked, do we know who is doing the score for Starfighter? And then Iron Boy Wonder says, 14 Oscar Academy nominated Thomas Newman. He goes on to talk about some things that he had done. And then, of course, Grandmaster comes in and says Thomas Newman is doing the score. All right. Perfect. So now we know that. And look, music is very important in Star Wars. You have to get it right. You absolutely have to. I actually think that there's been a lot of projects that did. I mean, for all the complaints and everything that some people had about The Mandalorian and Grogu, I do think that the music was cool because the first time that you had something that was a little bit different, but yet it worked because they had the right music for each scene. And I think the people that have done the music for a lot of these Star Wars projects, since John Williams stopped doing them all, I think is really cool. Dom says only episode 1 through 6 are loved by billions. Star Wars will forever be facing its peak, which is unattainable with Disney as they have destroyed everything it stood for. I don't 100% disagree with that. Yeah, that's true. Rogue One, you can throw that in there. A lot of people like that. Force Awakens, people loved it initially. It's been backed off a little bit. The prequels obviously were once vilified somewhat, but now everybody loves those two. He said, I used to say Star Wars should just hang it up, preserve its reputation, but at this point, let's see how far it falls. And yeah, look, you can take the cynical point of view about Star Wars, and I won't. Now, maybe there's other YouTubers that, are essentially Star Wars shills, right? And that they're somehow getting paid. Either that or they can't be objective. I could be objective. Daryl, who I'm assuming is still watching, is totally objective too. I mean, we approach we're not quite that cynical. I mean, we've become a little bit cynical in the sense of that we don't assume, like, we used to go in there and just be like, oh yeah, man, a new Star Wars thing, this is going to be cool. And then we're kind of disappointed and we're like, all right. And then we think about, well, this is good, this is bad, okay, whatever, on to the next one. Now we sort of go into it expecting it not to be great. And then we're pleasantly surprised when it is. That's where Star Wars, I think, has gotten to. Honestly, it's not even everything. It's only the TV shows and the movies. I mean, honestly, Star Wars animation is still incredible. It's still incredible, and it's still the most popular thing, too. The books and the comics are really good. They always have been. They've maintained a level. But at the same time, Disney does keep messing it up, guys. I mean, I can't argue with that. It's just, I don't know what it is. I've actually been supportive when there were rumors that said, look, we might actually, we might sell it. We might sell the property. And there was a time when they announced that Lucasfilm was selling to Disney that I was really excited about it. Because I thought, okay, cool. They should know what to do with this property. Well, they've demonstrated that they don't. And not that I hate everything that they've done, but at the same time, I do think overall they do need to reassess. Now, of course, they did do that. They put a break on releasing new Star Wars live action stuff, and they reassessed, and this is what we're going to get from the reassessment. So, look, only time's going to tell on them. And comparatively speaking, we don't have very long to wait. I mean, Ahsoka is going to come out in like 5 months. And then in less than a year, we get Starfighter. So, I mean, we'll see. All right, Iron Boy Wonder. Did you know John Williams won Best Composer 1978 Golden Globe, BAFTA? Yeah. I did know that because besides being around, that was the one that actually got nominated for a ton of Oscars. I mean, that was the original Star Wars movie was like the golden thing. And look, a lot of people owe things to George Lucas that they don't realize that they owe to. Modern digital cinematography, modern sound. He's done so much in the technical breakthroughs of filmmaking that, I mean, honestly, whatever. Iron Boy says, did love Star Wars Outlaws, even though it wasn't a perfect game. And then, of course, Daryl says, definitely objective. Dom says, Daryl is biased. Daryl responds with, prove it, Dom. Right. Yeah, now Daryl's like in the thick of it, like in the chats. That's good. He said, Dom says, can't prove it. They pay you under the table. You know what? I wish they paid us under the table. It would be so nice to actually get paid in secret. Hey, you never know. I mean, maybe they could like pay us to give like the opposite opinion or whatever. So it seems like we're being judgmental, but really we're being paid by Lucasfilm. That would be cool. To be paid in any capacity would be cool. All right. Grandmaster says, in my opinion, the main issue with Disney Star Wars is too much content too quickly. Definitely. They need to take their time between projects. Or at least have a plan. If they had an actionable plan, I think that, and this is where I think that they could have released each of the projects. If they wanted to do 1 or 2 a year, they could have done that. But they would have had to throw more resources at it. They needed a different structure. And I think they would have needed to have spent more time on the front end and not released anything for like maybe 4 or 5 years and get a bunch of projects going. I think that would have probably been beneficial. All right, so getting back to some of this stuff, with D23 here with Starfighter. Because look, if this movie fails, Lucasfilm might actually lean even harder on their legacy characters. Whereas if it doesn't fail, if it actually works, then we might get more fresh characters, more fresh storylines, more, just a lot of the things that they want. So really, if you have any interest in the future of Star Wars, you're going to want to make Starfighter successful. Because again, the question becomes, can they actually launch brand new characters that are completely unrelated to the Skywalker saga on the big screen? I think they can, because the legacy character thing seems to not be doing as well. And I don't think it's because of the legacy character problem. I just think that, it's just the stories aren't very good. All right, so besides that, what else do we got? We got the Mandalorian and Grogu pavilion items. They were showing some stuff in their pavilion. They got Din Djarin's armor. They got Grogu. They got the Anzellans, their ship. Young Rhoda the Hutt maquette. Life-size adult Rhoda. I talked briefly about the Lego Star Wars The Mandalorian. That was released. It's coming September 2nd. And I love the Lego stuff. I actually think that the Lego Star Wars has been some of the best content that they've released. That says a lot. It's based loosely on the 3 seasons of The Mandalorian, and it's a fun, family-friendly special. And again, look, the Lego Star Wars thing, it's not the biggest deal, but look, it's a gateway for younger fans, and it's a way for younger fans to get into Star Wars and hopefully grab them and make them want to watch different. Grandmaster says, the hope that Mando and Grogu would be the barometer for the future. Unfortunately, it failed. Now the new barometer and litmus test is Starfighter. And I remember even saying at the time, like before everything was released, Daryl and I both said that we were actually more excited for Starfighter than we were the Mandalorian and Grogu. And now I'm beginning to think that maybe a lot of people feel the same way. Now, of course, time will tell, right? I mean, if Starfighter does really well, then that'll pan out to be true. If it doesn't, well, who knows? Grandmaster goes on to say, right now, in every metric, only the legacy characters are still highly regarded in their viewership numbers on Disney Plus. There is that. And look, I am not against, look, I have to point this out. I need to be full. I am not against the legacy characters being continued in stories. In fact, I strongly support that. There's a lot of things in the comic books that have come out, like the whole War of the Bounty Hunters storyline that takes place immediately after the events of Empire Strikes Back, where Kira ends up stealing the body from Boba Fett of Han Solo, the whole carbonite thing, and then the Empire, and everybody's trying to get him back. I mean, there's a lot of really cool stories that they could tell, and a lot of the expanded universe stuff is really good. It's not so much that they're not telling the right stories, it's that they're not telling the stories right. And I think that that's part of the problem. Part of the problem, first of all, is they're trying to modernize Star Wars, which is the absolute antithesis of what they should be. Star Wars was designed to be a once upon a time fairy tale. It's an old time serial like Flash Gordon. It's meant to not sit in any particular time. And the problem is that Disney keeps trying to quote unquote make it for modern audiences. Or let's bring in modern social issues and everything like that. And they think that you need to do that in order to speak to the modern audience. And the bottom line is you don't. You just need to tell good, timeless stories, and they'll appeal to everybody. And I think that that's the main problem with Disney Star Wars, is that they don't understand the focus. Did I get this one from? Said, what is Star Wars? Or Buck Rogers inspired. Yeah, I mean, look, the thing about Star Wars is that I came into it when I was 6 years old. I was a couple of months away from being 7. And I understood it. There was a lot of sophisticated things in there. I got it. I mean, and it's true. Like Iron Boy's talking about some of the things that came before it, right? Like before Star Wars, there's like Logan's Run, and you even before that, you had 2001: A Space Odyssey. When Lucas came in, he changed everything about it. Not only did he change the way the stories were told, he even changed a lot of the effects. Like, it used to be that they would show, like, the model ships, and they would have a static camera, and then they would show the ship flying by it, right? Whereas he developed this whole, like, motion thing to where the camera could actually move, like on a gyroscope and all this other stuff. And it gave it more realistic, dynamic movements. It's just things like that. So at the same time that he was doing some groundbreaking storytelling, which really all he was doing was combining classic influences, classic timeless influences, and crafting a story utilizing all that. And then just be honest, he was also doing all this groundbreaking special effects as an independent filmmaker. So, we'll just have to see. And of course, Metropolis, Dragonfly brings that up too. Grandmaster says they are testing the audience with Starfighter to see if they can get fans to buy into new characters because the new trilogy with Rey mostly failed with the last movies losing a lot. I don't think that's really a surprise to anybody. I think that that's the reason why, if you guys remember, the Rey movie was supposed to be the first thing that we saw, right? The Rey movie was supposed to be shooting in, like, I remember it wasn't, yeah, what year it was, but it was like April of that year, you know? That's what we were supposed to get. And they kept moving it and moving it and moving it. And I think it's because as time went on, they realized that's why the hunt for Ben Solo isn't happening. And I wanted to see that. I mean, I actually really, really wanted to see the hunt for Ben Solo. But for whatever reason, they're really trying to distance themselves from sequel trilogy characters, even if there's potential there. And you can't blame them, but on the other hand, I also would caution them, not that they're listening, although they might listen to Daryl, since, Daryl, you're being paid by them, apparently. But the problem is they need to move away from making it a marketing-dominated decision-making when it comes to these new movies, and go back to the creative, because that's the other thing that made it successful that people forget, is that Lucas didn't care. He didn't care if anybody liked the movies. He was making them for him. He was ultimately making them for kids, but he was making them for himself because he wanted to. He didn't really care. And then, yeah, Iron Boy is talking about how, they're also nominated for Best Screenplay and Director, and, yeah, because, again, a real story, real movies, real. So I think that's pretty much it as far as all of that goes. Some of the stuff. Obviously, next week we'll be back to the Ninth Jedi review. We'll be going with episode 2 on that one. Daryl should be back. Again, just to recap, we were talking mainly about Ahsoka Season 2 and Starfighter. But the question comes, what about you guys? What are you guys the most excited about? Are you more excited about Ahsoka Season 2? Or are you more excited about Starfighter? Trust Dave Filoni to deliver for Season 2 after Season 1? That's a big question. Do you think that Ryan Gosling is enough to get casual fans interested in Star Wars? Because that's another reason why they might bring in a big name, somebody to attract a new audience. Do you think that Star Wars should focus on new characters or familiar ones? And ultimately it comes down to looking at D23. And a lot of this stuff is available on YouTube, by the way, too. I mean, there's a lot of things some insider stuff and some other general information that Grandmaster gave us in the Discord. Certainly, we would encourage you to go and look at that, because there's a lot. But then there's also various interviews and highlight reels and things that are available on YouTube that you can go back and look. And so in seeing all that, if you did see it, does it make you more confident in the future of Star Wars? And then finally, there's a lot of questions. What did not get announced that you would like to have seen? Because there was a lot of projects that were talked about that, would have been, like, say, the Lando series, for instance. Or maybe the Rey movie. Or maybe it's like the Old Republic movie. I mean, there's basically a lot that did not get announced that they might basically see them. Let me get this last one in here. Ted Adam Green, because I haven't really gotten. Says, I'm looking forward to it all. Ryan will energize the casual fans, and we need them. Yeah, I would agree. As much as I bag on the casual fans, we do. And then Grandmaster says, not all the sequel trilogy characters are disliked. I can share that there are discussions with John Boyega and a prequel character teaming up in the future. Just preliminary discussion. That's true. I know that Boyega was in discussion. I would not mind seeing a Finn. Like, actually, of the sequel trilogy characters, Finn and, like, Kylo are the two that I tended to favor. And then, of course, Ted says that he hopes Mason. And that's a good way to end the show, actually. Possibility of a Mace Windu Finn team up. But anyway, let me know what you guys thought of D23. Obviously, you can let me know in the comments. We continue the discussion if you want on Discord. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. If you do subscribe, definitely hit the notification bell, because sometimes, because we're not being paid by Lucasfilm, or anybody else for that matter, we can't always do it on Sunday nights. So we don't really want to rob you guys of a live show, so we try to move it on a different day, but you guys know how that goes. So you're definitely going to want to have the notification bell on so you know when we're actually. So until then, man, you know what? Even trying to end this show, I guess I could wait till Daryl chats it in, but I won't. I'll just do the whole thing myself, even though it's very awkward for me to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Next week, again, we're going to be continuing our review of The Ninth Jedi, so don't really want to miss that at all. Till then, I'm Eric Vansel. May the Force be with you always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you always.